This is Jim Williams with the Hurricane City Tropical Update video for August 19th, 4:30 p.m. There's the hurricane tracking map on the front page of Hurricane City, and boy do we have a lot of activity out in the Atlantic Basin. We have newly formed Tropical Storm Harvey right near Honduras headed towards Belize. We have Invest 97L that's going to be approaching the Lesser Antilles over the weekend. We have Invest 98L that was classified yesterday, or early this morning rather, as a system off the coast of Africa. And then 99L popped up later this afternoon. And I think the reason for that is this low-level circulation is well south of the Cape Verde Islands, and the original 98L is going to end up washing out, and I think 99L is going to be the main center of circulation, which could change the long-range model forecast on this system as well, so that'll be interesting to watch. But right now, all of our focus is on 97L and Tropical Storm Harvey. Let's go ahead and open up the HUR track and show you the estimated time of arrival of tropical storm force winds in Belize, and that would be tomorrow afternoon around 2 p.m. with 45-mile-per-hour winds. And of course, the countdown clock is activated at Hurricane City. Over here on the left-hand side of the hurricane tracking map, we have 21 hours and 35 minutes until the sustained tropical storm force winds arrive in Belize. For anybody watching, when we normally feature a city or an area that's being affected by or expected to be affected by a named storm or a hurricane, the countdown clock is always activated, and you'll get a good idea of when the sustained tropical storm force winds are going to arrive, which gives you a chance to get your home ready, such as getting storm shutters up, getting your home prepared, or maybe you're a storm chaser and you just want to get an idea of when the highest winds are going to arrive. That's a good idea to check out the front page of Hurricane City. We always activate the countdown clock when the conditions warrant. So let's go ahead and take a closer look at, let's go back to the HUR track program, put this in motion, and you'll see that the system currently is located right there just north of Honduras, and the system is going to cruise off to the west here just north of due west, and it's going to gain much strength, although it wouldn't surprise me if this got up around 60 miles per hour as it got into the country of Belize. Now, Belize is number 5 on my list this year for my cities and islands that I think are going to be affected by a named storm during the 2011 hurricane season. Belize was number 5 on my list. That'll be 2 cities knocked off the list this year so far this hurricane season. And of course, South Florida, there's quite a few cities in my top 20 this year, and it has huge ramifications for what's going on with Invest 97L. So let's get to some images here. And first of all, let's talk about Harvey. It got named as a tropical storm earlier today, and the system looks pretty well organized. The center is just north. There are some dark reds beginning to form here. This system could very well ramp into a strong tropical storm before it moves into Belize. But this, in fact, the hurricane hunter is going to be out there again tomorrow investigating the situation, as well as Invest 97L. Now here's the SAL shot, the Saharan air layer, which is the dry air out in the Atlantic. And this was the shot from the last tropical update video I did a few days ago. And you can see 97L out here. And look at all the dry air wrapping into the system. It's got pretty good wide envelope of dry air being pulled into the system. And of course, here is what would be Harvey, and there's no dry air associated with that whatsoever. And that's why that one went ahead and developed as it heads towards Belize. But Invest 97L just submerged in dry air, and that did not allow this system to get developed. Now let's look at it today. It's a much different situation, but the SAL is still there wrapping into the system, and this is why it's having a little bit of problems getting organized. But it's a very broad circulation out here, and it continues to drag some of this dry air in. But again, notice the difference between yesterday, or 2 days ago, 2.5 days ago, and today. And it's leaving the SAL behind. It's almost like, don't leave me behind, don't leave me behind. But it's leaving you behind because look at this. There's only a few sprinkles of dry air in there right now, and probably by tomorrow or on Sunday, most of this dry air should not even be affecting the system at all, which is why the models want to ramp this system up and take it into the Caribbean. And we'll get to a little model talk in just a second. Here is the visible shot of 97L. We're going to focus mainly on this because this could be a huge story for not just the Caribbean, but the United States down the road. We're talking next weekend, somebody in the southeast could potentially be affected by this system. But the question is, where is the center of circulation on this system? Now, You look at this and you would think, okay, it must be in there somewhere. But the official, the word from the National Hurricane Center on the 2 p.m. discussion had this center right around 13 north, which is down in here. And I personally believe that maybe even a little bit farther south, the center of circulation could be down here around 12 north, trying to wrap itself. And the proof of that is the wider angle shot of this system. And let me zoom in a little bit on this. And you can see that the system is basically a very wide system. And you can see here, and look at this, there's a little bit of banding coming in on the back side. There's the front side like this, and I believe the circulation is right here. It's a very broad, wide circulation right around 12 north. And if that is where the center of circulation is, this may come in a little bit further south in the Caribbean and head west-northwest, which could change the projected path and the effects on the United States. So we need to watch that closely. It's really hard to say with any model accuracy where a system is going to go until you at least have a center of circulation, and you'd like to look to 3, 4, 5 day forecast to get a good idea where something's going to go. But the models are fairly consistent on the track, the trajectory of where this is going to go, but it's all depending on where the center ends up originating from, and we still have yet to have a center of circulation on this. Now here's the Euro going out to Friday, August 26th. Takes this right into South Florida as it begins to move up the west coast of Florida. Has it as possibly a strong tropical storm, maybe a Category 1 hurricane, because it is traveling over land, and it's going to interact with Hispaniola, Cuba, and then come up into Florida, the Florida Straits, which would weaken the system, allow it to regain a little strength over the Florida Straits, but would not be a really powerful hurricane if it took a track a little further north in the Bahamas. Now, here in the Euro is a very good model, by the way. Now, here is the Canadian model going out 144 hours. And again, the Canadian takes it right near the Cayman Islands, maybe just south of the west tip of Cuba, going out 144 days. This is 5 days. It's a really fast track. Would indicate that we have a very strong high pressure ridge out here, and that would send it into the western Caribbean Sea. So it is just south of the west tip of Cuba, according to the Canadian, in 144 hours. Now let's go out to our next image, and this is the GFS going out 168 hours. Now remember, the Euro was taking it right over South Florida and the Florida Keys, and the GFS is a little bit further south, right near just west of Key West. Here is a pretty significant hurricane, and then heading into the Gulf of Mexico. And notice the trough on all these, your trough up in here is not really established down to the south. There's a little bit of a weakness here, which indicates this is going to turn, but it's a very close call. The high pressure noses in here a little bit on the GFS, and that's why the GFS is sending a little bit further south and west into the Gulf of Mexico. Now here is the H-Wharf. Now this is one of the tropical models, and this takes this, this is 126 hours rather, and here it is just north of Cuba, heading into the Bahamas, which would be probably a worst case scenario for the South Florida area, as you don't want a system over land, over water, north of Cuba. That would allow it to strengthen as it heads towards South Florida. So that would be the worst case scenario for South Florida. The best case scenario would be down in the Caribbean heading into the Gulf of Mexico, and then that would change, and the people in the northern Gulf would really have to watch this very carefully. But the H-Wharf tropical model takes it in here. Now, while I have the tropical models up, I don't have the GFDL, but that takes it as a very weak system much further south here into the western Caribbean Sea. So again, if this system remains weak and it's much further south going into the Caribbean, the people in the Gulf are going to have to watch this very closely. If it's a little bit stronger and it develops quicker and heads toward Hispaniola, it might be a Florida problem. And here is the NOGAPS model, which has a little bit of a southern bias on a lot of runs, but this has it going over Cuba and heading into the Gulf of Mexico as a weaker system. Again, the NOGAPS usually keep systems pretty weak compared to the other models, so we're just looking at track more than anything. Actually, the NOGAPS did a pretty decent job on Tropical Storm Emily when it took a track into the Caribbean Sea, so we're going to have to watch this closely as well. Now here is the UK Met, and the UK Met also takes this at a more southerly track here heading into western Cuba. But the one interesting thing about all these models, if you group them together, just about all the models take it somewhere between the Cayman Islands and South Florida, which is a really tight cone, if you want to call it that, a real tight cone here going out 7 days, and usually you don't see the models agreeing that much on any particular system, so we need to watch this closely. If you're in the Caribbean Sea, Northern Caribbean Sea, South Florida, or the Gulf of Mexico, especially the Northern Gulf, because it will make a turn at some point, you need to watch this very closely, as the models are fairly consistent in indicating this could make it into the Gulf of Mexico. All right, now the hurricane hunters are going to head out there and investigate 97L tomorrow afternoon. We'll try to throw up some of the live vortex messages at hurricanecity.tv. And, of course, they're going to check out Harvey as well as it approaches Belize. But anyway, our current feature is Belize at Hurricane City. And once Harvey moves inland in Belize, then we'll start focusing on 97L. Well, that's it for now. We'll have another update later in the weekend once we know what's happening with 97L. Thank you again for visiting Hurricane City.